Turkey's long-standing leader, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, will claim broad new powers after being re-elected as the nation's president. The election authority says Mr Erdogan won 53% of all votes cast, although political opponents dispute the result. Middle East correspondent Matt Brown is in Istanbul.
Thousands of Mr Erdogan's supporters have been streaming down here to his party headquarters in Istanbul to celebrate this extraordinary clean sweep of both presidential and parliamentary elections. This will now usher in a new era in Turkey. President Erdogan is being re-elected to the role of president with bold new powers. He'll be able to hire and fire ministers and, if he wishes, to rule by decree. The parliament could have been a check on those powers, but his Justice and Development Party, with its Islamist base, along with his nationalist allies, also seems to have been re-elected and reasserted its control over the parliament, which now risks becoming a rubber stamp. So Turkey is again in a deeply polarised state, the opposition not really accepting the results, and Mr Erdogan's supporters doing nothing but celebrating them.
Well, joining me now to talk about what President Erdogan's win means for the country is Ian McGilvray, a Turkey and Middle East researcher at the University of Melbourne. Ian McGilvray, what has been your reaction to this result?
Well, look, the election, we all kind of believe that Erdogan had a good chance of winning the election. The opposition did put up a good fight, though, and was quite energised, something that we haven't seen in the last 16 years. So there was hope that the opposition could have pulled a better result, but, you know, with the way that the state has been and laws have been put in place to skew in favour of Erdogan winning this election, it's no surprise at all.
So opposition parties have cast doubt on the result, and you would agree with that that's a possibility?
Look, there has been allegations of vote stuffing and ballot stuffing and vote manipulation. We won't really find out whether those claims are true until we get reports back from OSCE, which is due later today, or these claims have been found out by the Electoral Commission.
What does this mean for Turkey and the region and beyond?
Well, look, what we see now is this kind of highly concentrated power within the executive. So there is no real checks and balances anymore on President Erdogan's power and the AKP's legislative ability. But what we could see is probably the same, nothing will really change, we don't think. We'll kind of still see the same kind of divisive rhetoric that Erdogan's been using previously. We'll see the same kind of foreign policy adventurism that we've seen in northern Syria. He even did state today in his victory speech that he wishes to liberate further lands in Syria. So we'll kind of see the same sort of foreign policy adventurism. We'll probably see an sort of recalcitrant sort of loosening of EU ties to something more kind of transactional. And then, of course, the strain between NATO and the US will probably continue.
And how is it now unchecked authority for Erdogan? Is that how you would describe it? Well,
look, there is a highly concentrated power within the executive at the moment. The parliament as well, obviously, with the rise of Erdogan's party. They did not actually secure a majority in the parliament. Only through their alliance with the Nationalist Action Party, their alliance partner, did they manage to pass the threshold. Only if there is a way that the Nationalist Action Party fall out of favour with Erdogan could we see some sort of legislative check on Erdogan. The courts themselves and the judiciary is highly politicised as well. So we kind of see what Erdogan describes as a harmonisation of powers rather than a check on his authority.
Is it any consolation that almost half of voters who actually were able to vote voted against him?
Yeah, look, Turkey's highly polarised when it comes to its voting, and the opposition, there's one thing we have to remember, is that the opposition in this election actually was very energised that we haven't seen before in the last 16 years. And this is obviously going to present a problem for Erdogan. You know, this was a very Pyrrhic victory. There are lots of challenges that he will have to deal with now that he has this power. There's a brewing economic crisis. We still have this, this energised opposition, and this regional and international isolation in foreign policy.
Did the coup attempt in 2011 further galvanise Erdogan in the eyes of the Turkish people?
Well, look, in the post-coup period, there was a big uptick in Erdogan's approval rating. This kind of started to decline slowly, but then we see there was operations in northern Syria as well against Kurdish militants, which kind of pushed forward that nationalist fervor, which more or so has boosted his popularity. So, you know, what the coup did, unfortunately, is actually galvanize and concentrate power because of the state of emergency that's been in place since 2016.
Ian McGilvray from the University of Melbourne, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.